All right. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Todd.
Happy Friday. So in the document, there are two links. One is just a set of slides sort of in the format that you've seen in other OKR docs. And two is the, sorry, forgot to do that. And now, edit, save. Should now be available to everyone. My apologies. And a review app link to the OKRs that we haven't merged yet. So and Sid was asking me, why are there not just three? At this point, Sid, I think they're pretty well formed, and they're like some teams will put like Eric put VP engineering development and then had an OKR, infrastructure, OKR, security, OKR. And I didn't do it that way because I have it sort of structured differently. But most of them belong to a team underneath the E group, underneath me.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I
Do you
could
think
I
do you
could
think we
format
can
it
get there?
like, what'd you say?
Do you think we can get there? Do you think you can format it like that?
Format it like VP of engineering?
Yeah, so
Sure.
just have three things for you and then just divvy it out per team.
Absolutely.
That'd be
Yes.
great.
Biggest
Thanks.
thing is having a DRI for each one, in my opinion, regardless of the structure. Just like having people feel like they can own their objective.
And I think we have that for each one.
That was my goal from doing
Okay.
this.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll fix that formatting, but for now, let me just go through what they are. And if you on the team want to speak up or add anything, if they are in your world, please feel free to. And let me see if I can open the notes at the same time here so I can be watching that. Share this window. Okay, the first one is in corporate marketing. And so Mel, if you have anything to add, please do. It's launch awareness campaign. And the KRs are agency selected, business objectives agreed by eGroup and board, creative approved and tested, media plan in place, and first ads in market within the end of the quarter. And there's a link to the issue there. We actually have selected the agency after talking to 5 or 6. The agency happened to be the first one that Bruce actually recommended to us. And now next week at eGroup offsite, first challenge will be agreeing on the business objectives and making sure we're all on the same page as an eGroup about what we're accomplishing with this spend. I think the other challenge is messaging, just because command of message is hot off the press. And so our ability to kind of make sure we tie in with command of the message while having kind of a market message that makes sense. It seems like that's going to be a heavy lift, and then getting everybody on the same page about that. And then creative, we don't have much of a brand guide right now, so it'll be a challenge for an agency to come up with the creative. So we're asking them to keep it really simple. So those are the challenges, and then the dependencies are there. And we are hiring an awareness campaign manager to manage this. So the Melissa's not managing it directly, which she is now. Any questions on that one? All right. The second one is sort of in process, host 2 user conferences, one in September, one in October. Hit our goals in terms of 500 users, stay within budget, and average a 4 out of 5 on survey event satisfaction. There's a big epic around that. Main challenge is ticket sales. We're behind right now, I don't think we're out of the game yet by any stretch, but the next couple of weeks will be telling now that we have the schedule up and running. Just making sure that we're ready for all the speakers that are going to be there and that people are ready with their content. And then, the budget will be under pressure if our ticket sales are behind, because then we're going to need to add free users to in order to have rear ends and seats, which is really important. But I'm not convinced that we're not going to get there. So I think we're okay. And then there's dependencies mostly for making sure that the people who are speaking and participating are ready for that event. Melissa, anything to add there?
No, I think you captured it all. It's all about, we're doing a lot of promotion over the next month to make sure we're targeting New York and DC and Boston, anywhere that you can take a train into New York for the first one and going from there. But we've already seen ticket sales tick up from the speakers being listed on our website. So.
Okay, great. So Sid had loved the goal of 4 out of 5 stars for the event. So thank you for that. We'll talk about in-app messaging here in a minute when we get there. Okay, slide 4, new web design and dev hires operational. So we have one web designer right now, Brandon, who's in and this is I think week 2 or week 3 for him, already doing good work and helping our team. We have one starting September 3rd, and we're working on web designers right now. There's also a director level for digital design for this team that we're hiring. And we have 4 or 5 good candidates for that. So moving right along. Then the key results are getting version 1 of command of the message changes kind of proliferated throughout the site, working with PMM we had talked probably in Q1 about our repository. So this is the same discussion we had back a few months ago, and you agreed that this would be fine, which is separating the handbook from about.gitlab.com, and then having 2 repositories so that we could streamline our CI process on about. I'll give you an example. There was a lot of stress this week publishing your blog post because GitLab.com was running pretty slow. And it took over an hour, I think, to get that published. And so we want to separate and then streamline our CI process. And so the developer I have starting September 3rd has a lot of flat file Jamstack experience, and I hope that she's going to be able to help us do that. Static versus blog versus handbook. About.gitlab.com includes the static website and the blog, and then what we would separate out is the handbook or vice versa.
Why not, like the biggest problem is the blog. Why not separate that out? Because if you separate out the blog, that's going to be even quicker to have a new blog post than if you combine the static website and the blog. And I think probably all 3 of them should be split out. But...
Okay, we'll take that under consideration.
Thanks.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All 3 should be split out. Obviously, you have to start with one. So whichever iteration you want to do first is fine. The specific thing that impacted blog posting this week, if we had 3 repos, it would have affected all 3. We're working on that separately. But in general, yeah, this is a really smart change, and things will move faster if they're separated out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next one is SDR acquisition team. So Sid had a question about this. Is this for fresh territories? That is one place we would apply them, that's probably the main place we would apply them. And this is essentially a small group of SDRs who are very focused on that. And then we work with the sales team to decide where we apply them. So maybe it's new territories, new reps. Each get sort of a acquisition team kind of sequence or a timeline. So we still have to figure out some of those details, but we're working closely with McBride's team to make sure that we target them in the right place and then test and measure the effectiveness of that team. We hired the manager, and the manager built this team for us, for Evan and I at Red Hat. So now we're hiring SDRs to fill out the team.
So isn't an acquisition team, like, aren't all SDRs acquiring things? Like, is this a messy food name?
I think it is. I mean, we don't have something else that's doing that. So are they all acquiring? Yes. They're also working. It's like this team specifically doesn't do any inbound, and they specifically focus on kind of lighting up territories. So maybe we could come up with a better name, like SDR.
Should we use the acceleration term? We're talking about acceleration teams for the territories.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Great. Thanks, McBride.
6, simple campaign framework aligned with command of message. So this is the renovation of the campaigns. I talked about it in the group conversation this week and also in the sales go-to-market readout. There's a link to that group conversation if you want to see the framework. The first result is getting this agreed and communicated with sales. So McBride, need you and your team to provide feedback, but I'll have an issue about that for that. And then we're already embarking on simplifying the campaign messaging and aligning it with command of message. And then key result 3 is one new competitive campaign on top of the current competitive campaign launched in October. So taking that framework and seeing if we can repeat it, and then hopefully we can repeat it faster, because we have, I think, lots of opportunity to do keyword campaigns based on all of the competitors that we have. So there's some dependencies on sales here. There's some dependencies on the web team being able to handle it, but I think we're in good shape there. And I've talked about this multiple times. We're onboarding. We've signed a contract with the media agency. We're onboarding them next week. And so it's how fast can they get productive. Okay. Number 7, ramp digital spend. This is directly related to that. I've mentioned a couple different times we're behind at least $2 million on digital spend so far this year, demand gen spend. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on the team to get going here now that we have this new media firm on board. So we're going to be coming up with a plan with them. We know they've achieved $250 cost per MQL, which is about industry average. Before, we've seen what their work with other firms. And so we want to deploy at least $2 million. And if that's working, more than that in Q3, and then be able to track that back to 250 cost per MQL. So that's that one. Number 8, also related to campaigns. We've struggled to get the right campaign performance reporting. So making that a specific OKR to make sure that we get our Periscope campaign dashboard completed and a real-time pipe to spend reporting visible in Periscope by campaign, so that it's very clear the performance of each campaign. The challenges are related to why we haven't gotten to this yet, which is cost data isn't that big of a deal, but the results in the construct of the campaigns for reporting has been hard. So, for example, Just Commit was way too complex. And so we haven't been able to pull an accurate pipe to spend, whereas the competitive campaign was less complex and we were able to report on a pipe to spend. So we have to figure out how to take all of our campaigns and make them as easily reportable as that. And so we will overcome that challenge, and hopefully sooner, but by the end of Q3, have a dashboard in Periscope that's specific to campaign performance. Just checking okay. Number 9 is ABM programs running. So this is sort of a holdover. It didn't get done from Q2. We know why it didn't get done, but essentially we are ready to implement demand base now. We need to target accounts By territory, we need to establish some baseline metrics and then have ABM campaigns specifically running in 2 territories at least. So I just picked that number in order to make sure that we were running in more than one. And the challenges are typical to any sort of technology implementation, but and then also just making sure we're in lockstep with sales on which accounts we're targeting. And this will work with the SDR acceleration team. So these will kind of go hand in hand. And we are hiring an experienced ABM campaign manager to help us make sure we are maximizing the investment. And the last one, there's actually one more because David Planella, is David on? I don't think so because it's late his time. David just had a baby and then David just got back from paternity leave this week. So if you haven't, congratulations to David. He had the baby and is back. And so he added after this growth marketing one, I'll talk about that. He added one into the OKR page that I'll reformat under the CMO ones. About I think it's about the ambassador program, but it's in the MR. It's not on the page yet, but there's one extra one. Anyway, the last one here is growth marketing test launched, in-app messaging running on GitLab.com for user events. And we want to we're picking user events as we think an appropriate usage for in-app messaging. We don't want to be overtly marketing, but they are GitLab users. So inviting them to a user event seems like a really value-added thing. And so that's sort of what we're picking to try with Pendo integration and to test. So I'm looking for 1,000 click-throughs and 100 user event signups from in-app messaging that we can track. Pendo integration, first round is sort of the first challenge, is making sure that happens in time for it to be meaningful for these events, which I think it will. Getting the message right and the placement right. And currently there's no growth marketing people. So there's a few of us who are working on this in marketing. And then we need to, at some point, hire a growth marketing team, which is something I'm working on, thinking about right now, building a job description. So that is that. I think you had a question about that. In-app messaging for user events, is this common? Yes, that is common. Lots of SaaS applications, when they have their user event, one of the first things you see is, in-app messaging that's marketing the user event.
Cool, thanks.
When I log into Salesforce, there's often kind of a banner or something for an upcoming event.
Yep. All right. Any other questions? I will make the changes requested in formatting and resubmit the merge request, Sid.
Awesome, thanks. Looking good, Todd, on the priorities. All makes a lot of sense.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you, team, for helping on this, and have a great weekend, everyone.